Okay, in the previous lesson, I showed that when we write our JSON handling code and don't account for possible errors, we can easily create a problem over here on the Confluent side. And what I can do, let me just go ahead and show that again. So that one was called Consumer JSON Kafka Consume With. So when I look at the Confluent side here, we have the three records, and if you recall from the previous video, I entered the data manually for record number 3, and I mentioned that that creates a problem. Let me come here and run this. So this is consumer JSON Kafka consume with, and I believe that's that one right there. Yes, it is. So let's go ahead and run that, and we'll see the problem. And kaboom, you see the problem is that the key for that third value, the one that I entered manually, has some garbage characters right there before the JSON string. And that results in this runtime exception right there. And that runtime exception happens because of the way I coded this over here. So basically we have the key string and then we try to convert that from JSON into the key data type. That fails. That's going to return an either type, but that either type is going to have an error in it. So then I transform that error into a runtime exception, and that's why the code fails. But the real reason the code fails is because this from JSON attempt fails because of that garbage character. Where'd that guy go? That garbage character or characters right there. So as I mentioned in that previous video, there are ways to overcome that, and that's what we're going to do in 116 here, the consumer with JSON better error handling. So this is going to be a ZIO Kafka consumer that deserializes JSON data and handles some errors in the JSON data. So as we start scrolling through the code, you can see that's the name of this object right here. That information there is the same. That's the same. This is all the same. The decoders are the same. I added this right here to format our logging output. If you've seen my previous videos and know that I like my logging output formatted nicely, so that's what that function is going to do. And we'll see how that works in just a moment. And then starting here, I do change the deserializer slightly. So this is the same here. We're converting the raw data that we're getting into a string that we're calling map0. We have a string representation of the JSON at this point. And then what I'm doing here is I'm logging. So I call ZIO log. I format that key right there, and then this will be the raw JSON. And then we have the and then operator right there. So we say do that logging, and then here attempt to transform that JSON into the key data type. So this is the same code right here. And then we wrap that in from either, because again, this returns an either type right there. So then we have from either. And then what's different here is I'm saying, I want to return an option. I skimmed over that up here. So this key deserializer is going to return an option of key data. So what I do in this case is if everything works, then we're going to come here to the map function and we can return the key data inside of a sum. So this map is called when everything works. Otherwise, if something fails and we have the error case of the either value, then the code is going to come into catch all instead of map. So it comes down here and then we have this error. So then I'm saying go ahead and log that again, format this error, and we'll say fail to parse the key, and then we'll have the key string and then the error message right there. And then we're going to return the none wrapped inside of ZIO succeed. Okay, so that's the way that new key deserializer works. And then the value deserializer is basically the same, so I won't go through that one right there. Then let me come down here first. Let's look at the run value. So I went back to having ZIO scoped right here, and then we have a for expression inside of ZIO scoped. So we have the startup message with ZIO log. I think in all cases now I'm using ZIO log instead of console to print line. So starting Kafka consumer, and then we have the code that we've had before, right? Is there anything new? The only thing new is down here. Okay. So we have consumer.make with the consumer settings. That creates a new consumer instance that we're going to use right here. Then we call consumer.consume with, just like we did in the previous video. We have the subscription. That's our Kafka topic. And recall that our Kafka topic is this quotes JSON one right here. And we come back over here, and now we have key deserializer is this one, value deserializer is this one. So that's exactly the same as the previous video. And then when we succeed, we have a record. And what we're going to do here is call the process record function that I just skimmed over. So we're going to call process record with the key right here and the value right here. Okay, and then if I go to this function right back up here, you'll see that the key is expected to be an option of key data, and the value is expected to be an option of quote data. Okay, and then the way this function works is we're going to say, I want to create a match expression right here. And this is creating a tuple, a 2-element tuple. And it says, I want to match on this 2-element tuple. That's the way you read that code right there. And then inside of this match expression, there are 4 cases or 4 possibilities. And you can see that here, 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 and here. Those are the 4 possibilities. So the first one is you have a sum of the key and a sum of the value. And that means that we successfully parsed both the key and the value. And therefore we can call ZIO.log, and we'll use that formatting method and say success. And then we'll print the information out about the ID, the quote, and the author. The second possibility is that the key is a none value and the quote is a sum. So that means key parsing failed, but the value succeeded. And we'll print that information out here as a warning. That could just as easily be an error, but you'll see key, the parsing failed, then we can print the quote and the author information there. The third possibility is that the key succeeded and the value failed. Therefore, we'll say I can print the ID right here for the key, and then we'll say that the value failed. And then the fourth possibility is we could say that we were unable to parse both the key and the value, and therefore both of those are none. And then when we print that information out, we'll just say record processing failed, both the key and value parsing failed. So that's the way this process record function works right there. And again, that gets called right down here. So again, all of this code is what you've seen before. And then the only thing really new is the process record function. And that's the one I just talked about right here. And again, that works with option values because we're getting option values out of the key deserializer here and here, and the value deserializer here and here. All right, so I don't see anything else that we should cover, so let us copy that. Let's come over here. I should have that in the records. That one is called Consumer JSON Better Error Handling. So I believe I tried that. There we go. All right, and we see output. So let's see what's going on here. So we have the raw JSON. You can see the garbage characters right there in that string. And it's saying error, failed to parse the key. And again, that's because of the characters right there. And if we scroll down further, then we could say value, the raw JSON also has that right there. So that's going to produce an error as well right there. Failed to parse the value. So we get 2 errors right there. So the code is working. It's not crashing like the previous video was. It continues to run, and you'll see that we can now parse the others. So we get a success here. I was able to successfully process ID number 1 with this quote and this author. And if we scroll down further, we should see another success, ID 2, and this quote and this author. So again, the code is working, and then it continues to run even though it ran into some bad data right away. So that part is an improvement. And now what I want to show you is that in some cases like this, you can recover from this situation right here.